us, we are very vulnerable. And at this moment we're talking about, there are people out there who profess to be culturally aware, and they're Pan-Africans. I call them Pan-Africans. They're liberated. They're some sort of liberation, whatever they're calling themselves. But they're running around manipulating people. You've got Umar Johnson running around looking furtive around the place, and donation, it's just for the donations. That's Umar Johnson. Tariq Nasheed talking about butt breaking. He's going to make another movie, Hidden Collars, 150, you know what I mean? And I often wonder, don't you guys actually do the research to check whether this guy's saying anything true? I mean, he doesn't even know that it's Charles Darwin come up with the out of Africa theory. It's a theory. You know what I mean? It's a theory. It might make you feel cozy to say, oh, we're the first, but I mean, those who will be first will be last, and those who will be last will be first. I don't see why you love it up so much. I mean, I heard a theory the other day that sounded very plausible about Akhenaten being Moses. Ever heard of that one? Think about it, my friend. Think about it. Okay? I don't know what's with these Egypt lovers anyway. I don't get it. But anyway, so we are human beings and we can be manipulated. There are horse whisperers. You've heard of horse whisperers, and you've got people like, they call them whisperers. People that can manipulate the behaviour of a cat, a dog, get them eaten out of their hands. Well, in the high sciences, we call that behaviorism. Behaviorism is a high science. It's studying human behaviour, what makes us tick, what makes us function. And this one's by John B. Watson. All right? I have not read it. I haven't had the time. But I've got I.B. Skinner's Behaviorism. I think that's what it was. The spine looked like I.B. Skinner's Behaviorism, so I bought Foucault instead. My bad. So anyway, humans behave in a certain way, and we can manipulate them. I mean, for instance, if I were to say to you, you're in a room with 100 people starving, and I've got a bakery right next door, and I open the door, or a hatch, and I threw in 3 hot bread rolls. What do you think would happen with you and 100 people? What do you reckon would happen? Do you reckon you'll sit down there and put a napkin on and, take a slice and cut a slice, and you could have a slice, you could have a slice. Have you eaten? You could have a slice. Do you think that would happen? Or do you think people would grab that roll and tear each other to get that roll? You just tell me. I mean, you've seen the likes of the, what do you call that thing, Black Fridays, right? They could cute. But they don't, do they? You know what I mean? It's a free-for-all. It's human behaviour. I mean, what usually happens when you're in school and somebody came, in school, you just come back from recreation, lunch, you've had your lunch, full of your beans, and somebody runs in and says, fight. Well, what do you think they're going to do? Everybody in the classroom, the teacher's not here, they're going to go rushing out to find out who's fighting. That doesn't mean say they're all going to want to get 50-50 like the Westerns. Everybody starts throwing chairs and hitting each other over the head. No, that doesn't necessarily mean that. But the bottom line is, everybody wants the little excitement, and it's the herd mentality, as they say. And we know this to be true. And we know that for reasons. This fella, you've heard of this guy, Pavlov's theory, Ivan Pavlov, and the dog salivating, ringing the bell. Every time they ring the bell, the dog will salivate for a meal. And then he takes away the meal, but the dog still salivates. These are just tests to see what would happen with your expectation. Can you be in a state of expectation? And how do you behave? And what would you do for that treat? And would you believe that a bell's going to ring? There is a test that somebody said they did with fleas or something. They put them in a jar, and the flea will keep bouncing. After a while, it stops believing that it can bounce that high, and then you take the lid off and it stays right where it was. And they've applied that, and it's science. It's understanding you and me. We can be manipulated rather easily. We'll get to that in a minute. So I started off with what those humans do. They usually do it with animals first, you know what I mean? And then it became applied to human beings. When it comes to human beings, we have to talk to Edward B. Twittmeyer. A study of the knee-jerk. Twittmeyer applies the science to human beings in that we can be manipulated and we can do things without even realising we're doing them. Okay? Just by mere expectation. And it's an interesting story. It's not a very big book, but there's lots of other works that can follow this and you can get a better idea. It depends on what time you've got. If it's about an essay writing and you want to be thorough and you've got the time to do it, then you get more extensive into it. Well, I got extensive into it and I bought 4 books. I've left it inside. And when it came to reading this stuff about how we behave, now, I'm not a psychologist, but in my subject of education studies, history of education, I read around. I've got to read around. I've got to understand, how do we come to this place that you could be telling me rubbish and calling it education? How did we get here? I'm trying to solve this problem. So on top of doing the work to get by, I'm also reading on top of that. Hence a load of these books. Pretty much every essay, I have at least 10 books that I've had to write to get through that essay, or to consult to get through that essay, because I have to challenge the assumptions they're putting on you, and so it's outright bullying. It really is. It's stressful bullying, you know. But nevertheless, it was Anton Mesmer. I was led to Anton Mesmer. And who's Anton Mesmer? Anton Mesmer was somebody who talked about animal magnetism. And he believed by using certain magnets, you could control people by the current of the electricity in a human being, etc. I don't know if that's spookism or what. And it comes around about time when a lot of pseudo theories. The thing with Anton Mesmer is he did have people in what we might call trance, and that out of Mesmer was born the hypnotist. Okay, hence the term mesmerized comes from Anton Mesmer. Okay, and he was very popular at the time. And there's a story with him, a guy named Hell, and he was discredited for a time, but I was just fascinated. So I bought A Brief History in Hypnosis, Hypnotism, and I got one on Anton Mesmer. But I was more or less tracking down the trajectory or the chronology of the science, because it's science. It's telling us that I can manipulate you within a minute. Okay? So this was the book. This is what I would call this fella here. Oh my God, what is his name again? What the blazes? Right. James Braid, Scottish guy. James Braid. This is his works. This is the guy, the father of British hypnotherapy. It was always known as hypnotherapy anyway, and it was always about helping people to overcome their own problems. It was never really about stage show hypnotism, although stage show hypnotism came out of it. And this is all to do with what we've learnt in the since the Reformation and the allowance of science to understand that we can be manipulated. Okay? And I'll tell you where that goes. So he's the father of hypnotism, and it was only reading his work that I said to myself, holy cow. And I think I could hypnotise now. I think it's a collection of reading all the work. I think I can, in fact, I know I can hypnotise now, right? Of course, you need volunteers. People get scared if you say, I can hypnotise you. They start to hear, they see, danger, warning, Will, warning. You know what I mean? As if you don't know what you're doing. But be that as it may, I'm glad I went down this journey. But it's all about understanding the self. And that's an issue I have with an essay at my MA, because I don't know what the hell she's talking about. If you're going to be talking about gender, sexuality, and education, then you better understand the development and understanding of the self. Because you've got a lot of people walking around talking about their this, that, and the rest of it, and they are acting. So, they're pretending, you know what I mean, to be this, that, and the rest of it. And I can prove that too. Oh, well, it depends on the individual, but it's easy to prove that this is a viable concept and so forth. And there are methods of acting that people are actually employed doing. Once you understand the high sciences, you can kind of read, you can read a bit better. Read not just words, but you can read people better. You can know who's real, who's not real. And it bodes well for you because God's given you the gift of discernment. He's not made you to be a fool. Yes, you can be manipulated without the proper information, but it's one of those things. So James Braid, the father of UK hypnotherapy, I think, finally opened me up to, right? So what's all that got to do with university? Well, the powers that be use manipulation of the mind, high sciences all the time. And they don't want you to know that they're using manipulation and high sciences all the time because they're making profit out of it. It goes into advertising. It goes into many things. If you were to have this discovery, this type of education in your universities, you will be aware of the lies, you'll be aware of the indoctrination that you were receiving. You'd object to it. You would object to it. And you'll see how much money they put into maintaining these lies and going on and on and on and on and on, just repeating something which is blatantly untrue. I live in the UK, we're not in the EU, so therefore, if I were to say I don't believe that 6 million Jews were murdered by German soldiers before, during or after World War II, for that matter, they claimed this in World War One. If I was in the EU, you can go to jail for that. Yeah. You know what I mean? You can go to jail for that. Well, I'm saying it now because I think I've got evidence to show you the opposite. 300 babies were born in Auschwitz. That's some killing. How can that be a camp for killing people? It wasn't. But nevertheless, you have to have freedom of thought. And if they don't get freedom of thought, then they start to bring in laws to protect the nonsense that they are saying. And so they are making loads of money out of the high sciences. Repeating things over and over again which ain't true. You hear it from authority, you believe it's got to be true. You're not going to check it out. Well, why would they lie? Which is the normal, retort given. But it is what it is, and they do lie, and they are lying to us. And that's why I was insistent that I go through the whole chronology of the self and understanding the self and how we are where we are, why we are where we are, and why is university being hijacked by those on the left lying and using a position of authority and power over, by all intents and purposes, teenagers. All right, early youngsters, young people, anybody who wants to get a degree, who's invested in it, are scared that they're going to fail. And so the likelihood is they don't challenge it, they go along with it, they repeat it, and before you know it, the policy's in. And everybody's got a dirty hand in it and guilty. So when it comes on the radio that, they're teaching children of age 4 to give blowjobs, most of these females shut up because they know that they went along with it. They open the door with social construction. Anything goes. That's what social construct. That's what no absolute truth means anything goes. How are we to know what's right? And they say it to you with a straight face. If I said to you there's no absolute truth, I must be lying. It's circular reasoning. Because if there's no absolute truth, then what I'm saying cannot be true. But they want you to believe what they're saying is true. Oh, and your professors get all upset and they all gather together and they all start marking you down. Ooh, the bullying. Well, I think I've had enough of that, you know what I mean? I'm sick and tired of being bullied. And I'm in that situation. So this is the Enlightenment. The second Enlightenment is the understanding that the first Enlightenment gave us, somebody said jewels. It gave us science and understandings that we should never give up. And I read Bacon to you, Francis Bacon, and he talked about mischief. If you watch my video, you'll know that. Also, Immanuel Kant says something similar to Bacon. They are all in the Bacon's in the 1600s, warning us of these times and these hucksters, right? And Immanuel Kant is doing the same thing. They just didn't say it by name. They didn't say it by name, but they know full well people will get themselves in a position to hold education in their hand and mold the minds of people to their way of thinking. Well, the way of thinking of Yahweh, Yeshua, Yahushua, the Creator, is that we are free to think, we are free to come to our conclusions, and the choice is ours. But you don't know that you have a choice if your choice is taken away from you. And that you're not being, in the university, if they had told you, well, there's a school of thought called social constructionism, and it was popular it was created in the 20s by some Jews, became popular in the 60s, took hold in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It made people more extrovert, etc. But it was basically the seeds of destruction of the society. And then there was the truth in which we'd taken from Enlightenment. If they'd balanced it and said, well, this is what happened, fine. If they'd said, well, futurism in the early 20th century was an idea from Italy, you know what I mean? And they had all these avant-garde ideas about doing away with classicism and new modern ideas, the only things important, etc. But you can compare and contrast. But they're not doing a compare and contrast. They're saying, this is the way, you better listen. What was it? Get to grips with it, lecturer said. You've got to come to grips with it. Basically, you've got to believe it's the real thing and go with it. And that's not what universities are for. So I will be writing to an MP or somebody of note about the situation. And, you know, they probably won't do anything about it anyway. But so long as I know that I've done a good job, I've done a good deed, I've done what I'm meant to do. I wrote to Joe Johnson, that's Boris Johnson's brother, when he was university minister. He says to me, I've got the letter. And I wrote to Sam Gyama, and he says to me, right, none of them understand what I'm saying. They're answering a different question, and I'm like, why are you ministers? This is important. So I've got one more letter to write, and I shall explain it quite clear. Well, you can be the judge of whether I can do that. So in the comment section, please tell me if you think I can write that letter and I can make a cogent case that this needs to be investigated. Also, I'd appreciate it if you were to subscribe. At least it makes me feel confident that somebody's listening and get some sense out of it, or feels comforted with some of the things that I'm saying. So subscribe and leave a comment. You know, I am not great on the computer, and I don't have an assistant or anything like that. It would be nice, but at the moment, I'm just saying what I've got to say and trying to keep my sanity together away from this microphone. So I hope all's well with you, wherever you are. I think I've said my bit for today, and that will be, I think, the last part in my series about the second Enlightenment. I think I will say this, there's a quote from Edward Bernays. He's the nephew of Sigmund Freud, another person to do with psychology. I mean, they always put these people up, and it's their brain. So whatever they say, you got to, you know, I don't care what Sigmund Freud said, you know what I mean? But Bernays, in the book Bernays has, it's called Propaganda. It's a short read, but a very interesting read. I can't remember the quote. Basically, in one of the quotes, somebody is saying, is what I say, it's not what you see that matters, it's what you don't see. And if you are not of a mind that there's something that you ain't seen, you're being played, then you're being played, okay? So it's very important that the subject matters I'm talking about are understood. And that unless you understand this, I don't care if you're a Muslim, I don't care if you can recite the Quran, I don't care if you're a Christian and you can recite that, you don't fully understand this terra firma and what's important, and that Christianity is the brother in faith to Islam. Don't hit your brother. Don't hit your brother. You need more understanding. You know, you need more understanding to get this right. I'm not crying thinking that those Muslims are beating up on Christianity, because they can't win. And they're not going to win. It's not going to bode well. And we need each other. So, with that in mind, I bid you farewell until the next time.